Well, I think much has been said by my two former classmates, Steve Martin and Roberta Fonzie. We do put economic development as our top priority in the city of Atascadero. I love Atascadero, born and raised in this area. I quickly learned that everything I want to do costs money, however. And so again, we're focusing on economic development, and I think we have a lot of potential for regional tourism in the whole North County. So it's an area we are taking on. I'm also very concerned about the restrictions in government, what I call faraway government especially. A lot of my involvement on city council has been fighting at a federal and state level because I believe in local control, local choice. It's much more entrepreneurial. We, like a small business, can react sooner and are much more accountable to you. You can find us. That's why we have no free time, because everywhere we go around town, we run into somebody and we get an education. I'm not going to get into a lot of specifics here, wasn't planning on. Happy to talk about any topic. I served a year on the Regional Water Quality Control Board, which is a 6-county region appointed by the governor. Was canned by the Democrats. No offense to the few Democrats that might be here. But one of the issues while I was on the state board was I always brought up the issue of cost-benefit analysis. My undergraduate degree was in economics, specifically in natural resource economics, and I felt that every state decision should consider economic analysis for a very simple reason. I actually care about the environment. As I say in Atascadero, other people talk about it, we actually do it. Unfortunately, a lot of these regulations actually do more harm to the environment because it's a one-size-fits-all. Just one little example I'd use that when you look at the science, again, it's when these one-size-fits-all, one of the issues that came up with the water board is they wanted to require that we have a series of water retention basins to reduce any runoff from a piece of property to zero, because that would reduce pollution in rivers downstream. Well, actually, if you look at the science, I had to have a lot of geology along with economics, it found that if you slow the water down through water retention basins, force it to percolate into the ground, that in some cases, by the time it actually comes out to where the creek is, for example, it's now caught up with the other flow, and it actually worsens turbidity, worsens erosion. And so here we are requiring folks to put a lot more cost in, and we're actually increasing the very problem we're trying to solve. So I would kind of raise my hand and say, well, this is an example of why we don't want to have one size fits all. Another experience I had on the water board, again, why we fight so hard to have local control, is I saw a young lady come in who was before us, and she had a $25,000 fine, a young strawberry farmer, because she didn't have a proper permit for her farming operation. And I was really curious. I wanted to understand how this happened, so I kind of asked for a breakdown. We went through the whiteboard and wrote down. She started out with a $600 permit that she couldn't afford to pay. Life is hard. She only has a few acres strawberry farm. And so what happened is, a point, you have to pay your fee for not getting the permit, so they double it. And then there's a process where it's doubled again, and then you go through a series of processes where I said, so if I understand this right, this $25,000 fee she was faced with includes the $600 permit that she wasn't able to pay initially. And the staff said, well, actually, no. And I wanted to understand this. So what actually the story was is an agricultural group paid her permit for her within 6 months. But she'd already missed the deadline. And if you can imagine, even though her fee was paid for her of $600, within a couple of years, she had so many mandated requirements that she ended up before us with a $25,000 bill. I know you think I'm making this up, but this actually happened. A person while I was on the board, and I was somewhat outraged. And what was a concern to me is not only did a $600 permit fee turn into a $25,000 bill, where does the money go? Well, what happens is the local staff of the board get to keep the money, and it goes into their budget to then further do more regulation reviews. And I'm thinking, you know, if we did that at a city council level, people would think we had a conflict of interest. And so these are some of the issues that concerned me about what I call about faraway government. So you'll find Roberta fighting hard at Air Pollution Control District Board. I'm on a number of regional boards. We stay involved because we have to resist some of the illogic that occurs at a state level. I don't want to, I talked about coming back another time. There's some of these areas that have a lot of detail that are just interesting, and we need to resist. I think it's one of those things like when you find out the state parks has got a whole cubbyhole stash with money. When you find these things out, it crosses all party lines. People say, you know, that's just not right. And I think there's a lot of those things that we just through information, which is what you do well, we need to stand together and just put some light of day on some of these unknown things going on at what I call faraway government. And the average person is going to say, that's just not right. Let's stop that. So that's part of our job, I think, as a local government representatives, is to fight for you, do our homework where we can strategically resist these kind of activities. Meanwhile, our focus is we got to go out and make some money. We've done some things, and I would say is we really are very business oriented. We know that we've got to encourage the private sector to do a good job. They're the ones who actually provide most of the services and goods that we need. We want to help them do that. And the things that they aren't as well equipped to do strategically, maybe providing police and fire services, things that economists call externalities. You can't make any money because you can't charge people for some services. Well, we provide those, and we need to do it as efficiently and effectively as we can, and we do that with some of the revenue we agree we want to come from some of these other enterprises. So a little quick overview of some of the things that I've touched on. I'd just be happy to answer any questions you have. Yes?
I would like to know what kind of results you got that woman with the 25,000.
We managed to whittle it down to less than half. There were a number of rules that, again, it's at a state level, you couldn't have an impact on, but we were able to reduce it considerably, and I know a lot of folks statewide were very appreciative, a lot of folks in the farming community. But I'm going to come back sometime just to talk about a lot of great stories of my, as I call it, I was truly waterboarded. So,
that's my job.
Any other questions? Yes, in the back there.
You're talking about the retention basins. Retention basins are part of the code, and retention basins are required in the county, and they're also required in the city of Atascadero. Have you looked into any of this? And I know that before, we've gone before the city council, and the city council was, I won't say afraid, they were leery of bucking the state or bucking AB 32 or whatever it is. There are some of these things, and I agree with you. We're dealing with a house out on Santa Lucia trying to get a permit. They have a beautiful drainage swale that is natural, been there forever, and now a correction from your city, I have to pay an engineer to put a retention basin and keep all the water on this parcel that basically naturally has always flowed into the creek, and I'm not allowed to let it leave. So today I had to meet with my clients and tell them, yeah, you're looking at about another $3,000 for an engineered grading, not a grading, but engineered drainage plan, and then you're looking at maybe another $2,500 to $3,500 in putting in this drainage basin. People are broke.
Yes.
People are broke. But
well,
this stuff comes down. I only look at Peter because Peter has worked for the county for many, many years, and Peter is actually one of our good guys there. But this stuff has come down from the state. This stuff has come down from different boards and stuff. When are the local cities going to say, no, stop it? No more. I mean,
well,
our
the
citizens
challenge.
can't afford it.
Well, I'm with you, and you have some sympathetic ears. But sometimes, as I say, when we're in the majority, we can compromise. Whenever I've been in the minority, all I do is get my teeth kicked in. And I've been there on the council, those bad 2 years as I call them. And on many of these regional boards, we've been in a minority. I think you're going to see some things change at a county level, but I can tell you at the state level, when I've been on some of these statewide, we are way in the minority. And as I used to say, I got my religious beliefs. I used to think I was in the world to do good. Now I think I'm just here to resist evil. And quite frankly, sometimes it's important just to stay in the game. And unfortunately, it is a bit of a game because we don't have control. Now, there's sometimes you might think we're wacky at a city level, but we've said, you know what, we're going to stay in. And you're right. People say, well, the city's making us do this. The city's making us do it. Well, technically, yeah, maybe that's true. But what we are is the intermediary. We could choose to step out. And we made a decision with the water board. I personally, when I was mayor before, fought the water board over the issue of septic tank inspections. You know, we came darn close to having that, and that's a whole other story I'd elaborate on at some point. But the issue is if we opt out, what happens? Now the state, 5-county region state board, not elected, not reportable to anybody, but the state senate, primarily Democrat, in fact, they were all Democrats. So I think there was one Republican that voted for me. Basically, you're going to be responsive directly to them, and they're going to set the rules and enforce them. Now, what we've said as a city, no, tell you what, we will be the intermediary. So what we can do is help. And in the example of, I think it was that lady, yeah, I couldn't stop her from getting this complicated fee structure, but by being the review agent, I could knock it down in less than half. Well, I don't think it should have had any fees, but we were in a position to help because we were there. So, and there are a lot of things I have to get into. Yeah, let me explain my vote. It's actually worse than you think because we are compromising sometimes. And I could give examples from back from the creek setback issue in our city. A lot of times, we are simply making it less worse. And I understand the frustration. I've had to weigh this personally. And so there may be a day where we say, no, we're opting out. And I think we are getting close to a point. The good news about the state taking everything, it's kind of like the Janis Joplin song, when you ain't got nothing, you got nothing to lose. We're darn near getting to where, we could kind of tell the state, you know what, we're fine. You've taken all of, it's not their money. It was our money to begin with. And we have very little that we are dependent upon from the state. My personal philosophy is we need to be as independent. I am a believer in being self-sustaining economies, as local, interdependent as we can, and less dependent upon outside, because that may be the day that we come to at some point. When that is, I don't know. I don't think it's yet. We're just staying in the game to do the best we can with outside forces while we become as independent as we can, making good business decisions internally. So I don't know if that helps or not, but no, I feel your pain.
No, I understand. I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
And actually, one of our gurus, Mark Meckler, self-governance is exactly his new focus and his new lease on life. And that's exactly what you're talking about, self-governance.
Absolutely. Steve, did you have a question?
You covered it.
Oh, very good. Yes, sir.
I just have a comment to make, and I think it's a principle which needs to be thought through. And I have not seen any evidence that this has ever been done somewhere. It could be my ignorance, but that's all right. Anyway, I start with this. I think that when we force certain fees on the project, I think somewhere along the line we'd better figure out whether this project needs this and cannot live without that, or it's something that's never going to be used for the project. If you're forcing him to spend money on something that's useless to him, then he will not have money to spend on that which is useful to him. It's a simple concept. But if we ignore it, we are destroying the economic base of community.
Oh, I would agree with you. There are some caveats to that, but I don't know if we need to get into that. There are what they say in economics is externalities or spillover effect. And we have gone through a process where we look at development impact fees, for example, and we believe it has to have an actual factual basis that's tied to a particular project. It's wrong to say, well, we just want to take money from you because we just want to put money over there. You hear that concept at a federal level all the time. We're just going to redistribute the wealth. However, if in the process of me doing business, I create a cost that's shifted onto someone else, I'm responsible for that. And sometimes government is in a role to help monitor that because we try to have some fair process. So that's where I would say the caveat is what's the true cost of production? Now again, I'm speaking like an economist a bit, but we all believe that if we cover all of our costs and we make a profit, that's good in a capitalistic society, and we want to encourage that. But we do know that sometimes folks try to shift costs, government do this all the time, shift costs to somebody else and then make a profit. Somebody's going to pay that cost. And so those are the only kind of things I would look at. I think it's gotten a little bit too extreme where we find that we're kind of making up costs and then overcharging for it, is the experience I had on the water board. But there are some, I think most things occur for a reason. A lot of these things that we complain about originally had a good idea. Somebody just pushed it too far. So I think I try to find, well, what's fair? And it's probably about 10% of what it is, but you know, that's still something to look at. Dr. Fonzie.
I've got a comment and a question. Regarding the water board issues, we did the creek setbacks, and Don Cross worked with me on that and some other people. And we won. We won the creek setback fight, so we thought. Well, one of the proponents was a staff attorney with the State Water Quality Control Board, actually the regional board. And she went back to her job and over the next 18 months proceeded to craft definitions and standards for the city of Atascadero for water quality that exceeded those of Lake Tahoe and imposed them on us through the back door. We win some fights, we lose others, and that's why the city's sometimes a little reluctant to take them on, because they really outnumber us badly, and they have a lot of financial interest at stake to make sure that we keep paying their salaries. The question I have for you, Tom, you're the current mayor pro tem, you're running for mayor unopposed, you've been the mayor in the past, you've been on the council at least 8 years, 12 years?
10 years.
10 years, okay. Last time those folks were here, a woman came in, Ann Ketcherside, who announced her candidacy for city council, and she made the statement that one of the reasons she was running is because this current council was closing itself off to the public. For public comment, they wouldn't ask questions, and they're all corrupt, and that's the general line of her comment. But bottom line is, can you say something about the openness or address her comments, why you do not answer questions directly from the public, what led to that, or where are you at on that today as the mayor pro tem?
There's so many answers I like to give, that broader topic. One, I think it's very important for elected officials to be accountable. And I think we need to go out of our way to have opportunities where we can have some discussion. But when we are running the business meeting of a council, sometimes you can get off track. And we are there, we've got a lot of folks agendized to try to conduct business. Sometimes you might have a line formed, and we saw this filibustering occur during key issues, where you might, shoot, I had Walmart meetings go till 2 in the morning. We had folks have a lot of things to say, and I always said, thank you, next speaker please. Now if folks ask a question one week and you give an answer, and then they come back next week with 10 other folks, kind of ask the same question, you give the same answer. Well, there's other folks that are on the agenda that paid their fees to have a project heard. They want to get some business done because it's the business meeting of the city. We want to be able to address that. Also, if you're at 2 in the morning, I learned that you might not give the best answer to a response. You might actually say what you're thinking, but it's not a good answer. So what we do is, I absolutely think everyone should have an answer to their question. And sometimes when someone asks a question, if it's really a thought-out question, rather than giving an off-the-cuff response, it might require some research. It might be good to have a really good answer that you could essentially take to the bank. So usually we'll have staff get a response to that question and report back. It's going to be a well-thought-out question, and it should be definitive. That way, the next 10 times that question gets asked, here's the answer. We've researched it. It's definitive. And I think that is helpful and has us be more accountability. But I do think it's not, obviously if somebody says, when's your next council meeting? I can tell you. Well, when's the 4th of July celebration? Well, I can tell you that. What's it cost for a permit? Well, yeah, we can tell you that. But when it's a fairly complex question, it's better to give it some real thought and get back to the person later. So we do try to not get into lengthy dialogue with folks that are just coming to ask a question. There's also some limits with what's referred to as the Brown Act. We have my attorney friend here who can talk a little bit more on that. However, the issue is we are not supposed to deliberate on something that's not on the agenda. And sometimes folks want to get into a dialogue, a discussion on something that just came up during public comment. The problem is, we've researched something that's on the agenda. We're here to do business on it. We've got a good staff report. We're ready to take action. And anyone that's got an issue about that has been noticed. They know it's on the agenda. We're going to talk about it. If somebody just comes up tonight and says out of the blue, well, I'd like you to think about this and come to a conclusion council on that, well, wait a minute. If other people knew that we were going to talk about that and come to a conclusion, they might have wanted to be at the meeting. So our open meeting laws require that you don't do a deliberation or come to a conclusion as a council or give staff direction to go do something when you haven't gone through a process. Now, it's frustrating, it slows things down, but slowing government down is not a bad idea sometimes. So we try to keep it a business meeting. Certainly we welcome anything you have to, I've heard people tell me all kinds of things. That's why my wife can't watch the TV and why you shouldn't watch. But that's okay. You can call me any name you want. You can ask any question you want. We will give you an answer, but we aren't going to make a decision on the spot without going through a process.